Welcome, everyone. How's it going? I got the lovely Farzad here with me to join on the channel. A surprise power hour, mind you. I mean, usually Fridays, 12 p.m. Pacific is when we do the power hours on this channel. But I figured, post Labor Day, the dog days of summer are behind us. Why don't we get the one and only Farzad here and we can just kind of debrief chat. We'll keep it kind of loose. We have Tesla stock price pulled up and I'll pull up here in a second. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. I have my blueberries today. For those that follow this incredible drama that's been unfolding around blueberries, I'm a stern believer that this is juju. And if you don't subscribe to this man's channel to get him to 20,000, I will personally go to the White House and have him write a law that blueberries are juju. So it's on you, people. It's
You heard
on
it here.
you. You better get it done.
And to be honest, I'm not a lot better. I'm not proud of this. Okay. But today I have no oranges. I have no mandarins. I have no sumos. I've got a lemon though. And if Tesla hits $300 on stream, maybe then I'll take a slice and pump it up and you'll see my reaction. To be honest, I can't eat lemons. I've done it before. I don't mind it. I like the sour. But anyways, thanks for coming, Farzad. And by the way,
Of course.
you're killing it with all the
I got
interviews.
my bowl.
Oh,
Thank you,
there you
man.
go. Yeah, you're killing with all. And
I appreciate that.
And why don't you share what you got going on tomorrow, which I think will be exciting for a lot of people to hear about.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate I appreciate the opportunity to plug. So yeah, for those that don't know, I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Farzad Misbahi. It's the last name. Tomorrow I have Gary Black and Alexandra Mertz returning for a part 2 discussion. Last time there was this whole meme thing where Gary's mic, the poor thing, was not very good, and so he offered to come back, which was super nice of him. So we'll have a part 2 discussion. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Then on Thursday, I also have James Dalma and Chuck Cook coming on the channel at the same time. We're going to debate FSD. And then Friday, I have Matt Smith from Good Soil coming on for our community forum. So yeah, it's a super fun week. I'm very grateful to be able to talk to all these very smart people. And thank you for letting me plug, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about the community. And what I really like is like finally now it seems like everyone's back from vacation from the summer. Volume is, I kind of tweeted this morning. I said volume's finally back in the stock market. I mean, it's debatable. 45 million shares, which is about equivalent to 15 million pre-split. It seems like we're finally seeing some action. And speaking of action, let's talk Elon and Twitter. You're more versed in this than I am, and I know you're saving a lot of this for your talk tomorrow, but I'd love to get your kind of overarching thoughts. There's a lot of people that are debating whether or not this Twitter overhang is affecting Tesla. Do you think it is? Do you think it's not? And where do you think this kind of whole ordeal goes?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the overhang piece is that if you look at the last few weeks, Tesla has seemed to outperform the NASDAQ and the broader markets, which I think when it comes to the argument of overhang, maybe you can debate and say, well, it's overperforming versus the indices. So what's the overhang? Now, there could be a second thing that comes up and they say, hey, listen, it could have gone way higher if Twitter wasn't there and they would be able to sort of, pave their way back to a trillion market cap or whatever. But I think if you sort of compare Tesla versus other the indices, it's doing better. It seems, and especially versus growth stocks, it's completely outperforming that part of the market. So,
Yeah.
I view it from that lens, and I think I do still feel like the deal gets done regardless. I was on the boat of, and I'd like to think through this tomorrow with when I have Gary and Alexandra on, but I'm still of the thought that this gets settled before it goes like truly to court, because I just don't see how this is and I would love people to school me on this. I don't see how this is in any way positive for Twitter, even if they are going to court to say, hey, Elon, you said $54 a share, like you have to close the deal. You're still opening up yourself to a lot of risks when it comes to exposing your company. Everything, all the dirty shit or stuff. Excuse me, all the dirty stuff comes out during court rulings
Dirty
and being in
laundry,
front of a
airing
judge.
that you almost don't need to.
Exactly. So to me, I think Twitter already has an incentive to and try and settle. I think from Elon's side, I do think he still wants Twitter quite badly. He's openly said that if he is going to create his own social media platform, it's going to be at least a 3 to 5 year time to get it to where Twitter is. And Twitter is an accelerant to that. If it has a lot of bots, maybe that's 2 to 3 years instead, or even 1 to 3 years, but it's still an accelerant. So I still feel like Elon very much wants to buy the company. And if the deal does fall through, it already implies that Elon's going to come out with a Twitter competitor in the next 3 to 5 years, which does not bode well for Twitter's long term survival. And I think the board knows this. So the board has a lot of incentives to try and settle with Elon. Then the argument becomes, is this a thing that Elon should take on? And I'm on the camp that it is, because Elon has shown that he is great at executing. He's great at operations. It doesn't matter what sort of a field it's in. He has state of the art rocket company, state of the art automotive company, state of the art energy company, state of the art AI company, right? So he's just good at making good businesses, and these are seemingly very different industries. So so that's my thought process. I'm curious to hear yours, but that's where I'm at.
I mean, that's I think the first point that you made is so true. Like, why air the dirty laundry if you don't have to? I mean, Elon's already greater than 10% owner of Twitter already. And so presumably he knows a lot more than he's leading on already. And to be honest, it's not like he can't just pull out of the deal. And that's what they're fighting about. I fail to see a way that he can just single-handedly unilaterally pull out of this deal. I think he knows that. That's why he sold more Tesla stock, to have that opportunity in case financiers bail. Like, you wouldn't make that move if he didn't know he had to buy it in one form or another. I think what's happening now is just prolonging it. I see it again. I continue to see it as a sideshow. I know a lot of people watching the channel may like the drama, but I just think overall it's a huge distraction. I don't really care for it too much. I don't think Twitter is a great company to own in terms of earnings and earnings potential and growth. What you say about Elon is true. Everything he touches kind of turns into gold. He has the Midas touch there. So I'd be curious to see where it goes. The only caveat there is I almost think he's touching this and taking it and trying to make it more of a public utility, or as Jack Dorsey kind of called it, a protocol, right? Like this kind of new age, decentralized. Oh, it exists for everyone. No one owns it. It's kind of the public town hall. And we don't want anyone to touch this kind of like utopian environment here. And so I don't care for it too much. I don't think it affects Tesla in the long term. It may affect Elon and his cash position. But at the same time, I think those who say, and by the way, there is a kernel of truth. I was on Twitter kind of debating some people who were saying that there's a Twitter overhang today. Gary Black was one of them. And I was like, no, like the market's down. Tesla's still doing bet. By the way, the market's like red right now as we record this and as we're live. And Tesla's up 1.4%. So I don't think there's a Twitter overhang, but I do think he's right in the sense where institutional investors don't like the whole sideshow thing. Like today it's Twitter. In 3 more months, it might be something else. And they just don't like the continual having to explain to clients what's happening, where now they're investing resources into the sideshow where they don't want to be. And so from that respect, I get why institutional investors kind of stay away. But I guess that's kind of the opportunity that retailers can have, right?
Yeah. But I think that in itself, what you just described, is a way for retail investors to capitalize on Tesla's long-term potential. Because if you really think about Tesla, when has it not been a sideshow? Like there's always been a sideshow when it comes to investing in since IPO days. Right or wrong, Elon is Elon, and he's gonna just do whatever, and he has every right to do that. He's a human being; like he can do whatever he wants. Then people have to decide: do I trust my money in this thing that's happening? And if most of the money in the world exists as a way to preserve wealth and to diminish risk, then it makes sense that most of the money is not willing, or like institutional investors, they're not willing to invest their money there because it's not a safe asset. It's perceived as a safe asset because of the things that are attached to it. So to me, if you're somebody who still net trusts that the trajectory of the company is going the right way, then the sideshow is, to me, it's just entertainment. It's just entertainment, And I get to have a YouTube channel and go on and talk about it and have a good time with people in the community while still thinking about big picture stuff. But it's just part of this sort of universe that is opening up.
For sure.
So it's it's an interesting sort of thing that's developing.
Oh, I completely agree with that. And I've always said, like, what Elon does with his money, him selling shares, you don't have to like it, but it's his prerogative. As long as it's legal, he can do what he wants, and it's his money, right?
It's unusual. It's very unusual the way he approaches everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And you know what? Like my dad often says this. He's like, Elon's like the master marketer because everything he does causes not just like a headline, but like wide, like for a week, everyone will be talking about it. Even people that don't even talk Tesla and Elon know, like, like friends of friends came up to me a couple days ago and they're like, oh, like, so I heard Elon's backing out of Twitter. And I was like, since when do you even follow like the public markets? Like it was hilarious to me to all of a sudden see like, wow, like, the reach that Elon's name gets is just insane. And for better
Yeah.
or for worse, by the way, like a lot of Tesla bulls in the comments, I'm sure will argue like distracting doesn't need to happen. But like you said, he's kind of it is his prerogative at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's still to this day. I think it's underrated just how much of culture is now Elon and Tesla and these things and Twitter and these things that are happening, and put that within context of the next 3 to 5 years prospects and how society is going to change given the different technologies that are being developed with Starship
Mm,
and self-driving cars and the bot. Imagine the cultural impact then. So
mm,
this is just a primer. I think it's a primer for a lot of us that follow the company and are investors. Like this ain't nothing. It's about to get way crazier in 3 to 5 years. Like if you thought this sort of attention that the company and Elon are getting is seems disproportional to the overall mission of the company and where the money should be sitting, boy, are you in for a ride because it's about to get freaking weird. In my opinion, that's what I think is going to happen anyway. So.
Speaking about weird, that's a good transition into AI Day 2. We were having a good chat about this before we went online. Now let's just debrief. Of course, AI 2, AI can't even talk today. AI Day 2, tongue twister, coming out, happening later this month in Palo Alto, I believe, California. You had really awesome thoughts around AI Day 2 and what everyone potentially may be missing with this event.
Yeah, I do think that. So let me prime it. When is the last time Tesla has released a product where you've been able to go in and place a reservation? Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I'm pretty sure it was the Cybertruck, which was late 2019, November or something, 2019. So it's been over 2 years, almost 3 years now, since Tesla has unveiled a product where people can go in and purchase or place a reservation for. The bot was unveiled at the last AI day, but you haven't been able to go in and place a reservation. And I do think that although Tesla will show the bot in a lot of different forms, I don't know if they're going to be opening up reservations yet for it. I think they still need to go through a phase where they really have to validate the technology internally and ensure that it can do things before they really want to. The last thing they want to do is open up the bot and this thing's freaking useless. Like Tesla is very, very good at ensuring that when people put money down for a product, the end product is as good or better than what was initially shown when the money was first available to be put down for the product. So within that context, I do think Robotaxi could make an appearance at AI Day 2, and I do think that it's something that folks could reserve as well.
Hmm.
And I have a few different theories and hypotheses of what Robotaxi could be, but I do think so. So let me go into that next. So I do think Robotaxi is going to be it's going to follow a model similar to the airline industry, where Tesla is going to be a sort of analogous to a Boeing or an Airbus.
Hmm.
And then, so they'll essentially build out these robotaxi shells that have the drivetrains, the batteries, the doors, interior fittings to the point where you just sort of have a shell built out. But
Yeah.
the general assembly, most of the GA process of a car or a vehicle that transports things or people from point to point, those are going to be 100% customizable by the fleet providers, just like an airplane is today, right? Boeing sells, or Spirit and United and American Airlines, all these other companies purchase the planes from Boeing and Airbus, and then they decide how to make the interiors different. JetBlue will have the blue lights and more comfy seats. United is freaking like a sardine can in there, right? Spirit is even worse. It's like a bus in the plane on air, right? Cheapest possible thing, but it's different. So I do think the Robotaxi model is going to follow something different, because when you are in an environment where vehicles can drive themselves and you don't need a driver, and these are orders of magnitude safer than a human, you have an entire new thing starting to open up where the model becomes much closer to a plane, or even those party buses. You know, those party buses that people take, like they can be customized like a limo. It's a very different interior because the thought process is that it has different regulations because there's a separation between the driver and the passenger. If the robotaxi follows the same model, then it makes a lot of sense to allow there to be a lot of variety to what those interiors can be, to be customized to what the market demands. So if there's a market that demands a lot of remote work while driving around, you give them that. Point A to point B at the lowest cost, you give them that. A sort of RV style where you can go check out the outside and go travel around, you give them that. And then all of those solutions would live on the Tesla ecosystem, where you can hail them from the Tesla app. Tesla takes a cut, but then as a fleet provider, you can add your robotaxi fleet to that and make, 95% of the profits per mile. So, and then that also allows Tesla to maximize how many units they can build outside of the factory at the lowest cost, because they essentially remove general assembly and they just focus on just stamping out these shells. And then you can have multiple millions, per year, probably 15 to 20 million per year of these things, because you've essentially outsourced the upkeep of the robotaxi fleet, and you've also eliminated and essentially outsourced general assembly, and you already don't need to paint the damn thing. So it's like you just need to put this shell together and boom, you're done. So that, and I think that gets unveiled at AI Day 2, but I could be 100% wrong. But I do think that's the model of robotaxi at some point that will be unveiled.
Okay, interesting. I was not there. What I will say though is, okay, first things first. I think AI Day 2, you're right. A lot of people are forgetting. Like a lot of people are only talking about the bot at this point with AI Day 2, and I think you're right about. I think you're totally right that I think we need to go back to FSD a little bit and robo taxis. So that part I get. So are you saying that they're gonna potentially, and this is obviously just your guess, you don't know,
Yeah.
you're saying that they're gonna have some sort of pre-order system with this, and that's what's kind of going to be unveiled here, because a lot of people are thinking this is just like a talent recruitment event again, which is what Tesla kind of said for the first one as well.
Yeah, it could very well be just that. Yeah, I might be. Somebody said Farzad's dreaming again. You could be 100% right. G said it. I could very well be dreaming again. I just find it. I think there's something to the point that Tesla hasn't unveiled a product in almost 3 years now, and they're due. They're due for a new one because of, Elon's been hyping up this pipeline of products and things they can't talk about yet. And the last AI Day, there was a surprise announcement, which was the bot. And I'm not saying history is sort of indicative of future things that might happen. But I don't know. No one's talking about Robotaxi. And then 1069.1, 1069.2 have been doing very, very well. So they show, by the way, without Andre Karpathy at the company. So that should tell you, how Tesla's doing on that side of the world. There's just a lot of momentum towards this robotaxi becoming this dedicated robotaxi appearing and allowing people to put some sort of reservations in. Because you think about the sort of environment you need for a fleet of robotaxis to exist, regulation has to get up to speed. You need fleet providers to be aware of this thing coming out so they can start planning and setting up the supply chain for it. There's a lot of moving pieces, but I could be 100% wrong, but I do think at some point, something like this could very well be announced, and that would be the model for robotaxi.
And definitely speak what you feel convicted to speak on. Like, this is your best guess. What's interesting though is I think Tesla will not take this approach, because I think they're pretty cognizant of trying to, again, take money, albeit $100 or whatever it is for a reservation, to take money again for a product that doesn't exist. And I think what they potentially might have learned from the Cybertruck and all the delays and albeit force majeures is that let's not release anything else for pre-order until we have the Cybertruck coming out or the Semi coming out. Like, what I think is the backlash and the feedback that the general market gives Tesla for having pre-orders and reservations for products that are still outstanding to yet be delivered. I think Tesla may take more of a conservative approach with pre-orders now, because let's be honest, whether Tesla unveils it now or unveils it 2 years later when it's hitting manufacturing, they're going to have demand for almost any product. If Tesla came out with a toilet, let's be honest, people would buy that toilet, right? I think Tesla
better come with a bidet.
I think if Tesla takes more of an Apple-like approach, where we're releasing the iPhone 14, we're unveiling it, and guess what? You can start ordering it for delivery in a month, right? Like, I think that is probably more of, and maybe I'm like, again, this is just my thoughts on this because I think
Yeah, yeah,
that's the feedback they've gotten in the marketplace. And let's be honest, they don't need the cash today. Even if you wanted to make a bear argument, oh, Tesla needed reservations, reservation money as kind of like a semi loan almost. Like Tesla does not need that. Let's be honest. Tesla's not relying on this reservation money at all, given their
yeah.
balance sheet. So I think they're going to be cognizant of pitching something to have pre-orders for when there's still outstanding products that consumers might be upset about, like the Cybertruck. I know a lot of people have probably ordered the Cybertruck and they banked on this and they're like, hey, it should have been here by now. Now I have to order my Ford F-150 or something, and instead of a Cybertruck, and maybe I still have to wait another year from today to get and maybe that's if you're first in line. So I think there's a degree of that.
Yeah.
Um, what?
I,
Yeah, go ahead.
I can see that. Yeah, sorry. I can see that, but I do think that the thing to keep in mind with that is that Cybertruck was unveiled before a global pandemic, so I think that does make a
Yeah.
big impact. And Model Y was released faster than people expected. So I think that's the trend that Tesla was embarking on. You know, if you think
Mhm.
about Model Y, it was 6 months early. So, you know, they were doing exactly what you were saying in a sense. And I think Tesla returns to form from that perspective. And I do view their future products as being quite a bit more it's going to address a lot more markets than just the consumer market. So things like the bot and Robotaxi, as an example, are going to
Mhm.
be heavily influenced by commercial, right? Because the bot's going to be essentially a labor replacer, and the Robotaxi is going to be my hypothesis is that it's going to be primarily driven by fleet operators. And
Mhm.
so you need to give these people a heads up and something that says, hey, this is coming, and if you want to get in front of the line, you can do that. And we're going to say, you know, be maybe what Tesla could improve on is being honest about their timelines. Maybe they could say 2 years from now, not next year, and at least set
Mhm.
some sort of like expectation. And then you also got to think about the complexity of the products that Tesla sells, especially like a vehicle. The supply chain could be quite a bit more, let's just say larger, like they're just a bigger thing they're building. So that's going to bring a lot of visibility, and all you're going to have to be dealing with is rumors for a year that Tesla's working on a new product, and that Tesla has to manage that, right? So
Mhm.
I think there's more risk in pocketing those things and waiting until it's ready to be released than to just release it and then allow the market to decide how they want. And then Tesla gets a signal from a demand side as well, and they're able to plan their supply chain accordingly as well. And that's incredibly valuable when you're a supply chain. If you know what people want very well ahead of time, then you can really craft a supply chain and, you know, place the proper amount of units and build out your factories correctly so that you're able to ramp up properly to this demand. So,
Mm.
but I hear you what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but I do think it still benefits them in releasing things ahead of time, or like giving people a lot of heads up.
So like you would definitely know more than I with the internal thought process that Tesla teams have around this stuff. So very well possible. And what you said a couple minutes ago, I really want to dive into a little bit around FSD and robo taxis. By the way,
Mhm.
27452 sitting on Tesla for all the people in audio. FSD robotaxi. So if in 10.69.1.2 or whatever, let's hear first of all your thoughts with beta, how it's going. Or do you believe in Elon's timeline still by the end of the year for the wider release beta? And then I'd love to hear your thoughts around if Tesla does solve for FSD, let's say, whatever that means, it's a fuzzy definition by the end of the year. How do they almost pilot this program, and how do you kind of foresee that happening? Should that day come this year?
Yeah. So I do think end of this year, full self driving will be pushed out to the entire fleet of buyers that have purchased full self driving. I do think that happens. I think the trend is towards that thing happening. I haven't received 69 yet. 10.69. I'm six. I haven't received six. Freaking. This is what happens when you're part of the test. I haven't received 69 yet. You put that in a different context. We're going to be like, you're weird. Why are you talking about this publicly, right? So, but
Let me
anyway,
take a slice.
I haven't received it yet. And but I've seen the videos. I have the one right before it, and it has been performing quite a bit better versus the other releases. But it looks like 69.2 or 1.2 or whatever seem to be pretty big leaps If you follow Matt Smith from Good Soil on Twitter, he seems to have been quite impressed from the last release. I'm sure everybody has seen Chuck Cook. I have Chuck Cook and James Dama coming on Thursday. I think I said this earlier, but they're going to be debating sort of the state of full self-driving as well. So that's going to be super interesting to hear these two guys talk from sort of two different angles, because Chuck thinks it needs more hardware, and James is convinced that it's just a software problem that they just have to solve it. So within those two things, I do think it still gets done. And then as far as trialing the Robotaxi network, I like, so you and I were kind of speaking before this, we went live. I do agree with what you sort of put forward, that Tesla's going to have to prove out, they're going to have to do a pilot program that's likely to be geofenced in a city area that they have high confidence in, that Robotaxi or some sort of Robotaxi network would be able to be executed on, and then allow that to be the use case for folks to realize that this is here and they can take part of it, whatever that means, if it's a consumer or a fleet provider. So I think that late this year is going to be very interesting to watch, which sets up a very interesting 2023, because now you have Tesla in full ramp mode in Berlin and Austin, with the possibility of pulling a lever with recurring revenue and AI revenue generation from full self-driving and Robotaxi. So it's going to be wild to watch. What do you think?
I agree. I think look out for Tesla to make an announcement on a partnership with some municipality around piloting FSD, robo-taxis, whatever you want to call it, level 4 or 5, I don't know, before the wide release. Like, and by the way, I think we should be careful and highlight this. Everyone seems to have a different definition of what Elon means by wide release this year. I've seen people specifically say, "Oh, Elon means that's level 5 end of this year," and in the same breath, I've heard people say that, "Oh, that just means that anyone that has FST can get into the beta program." Now, those are two very different things. Like, as it stands right now, to get into the beta program, you need to have a safety score of whatever. Like what's the current level of safety score? Do you know?
95 or 94, something like
94. And by the way, people with 99s are still not still don't have
that.
access. Some people, right? So let's say 94, 95. So by the end of the year, to my understanding, it is, look, anyone that has FSD can now join the beta by the end of this year. Is that right, Farzad?
That's right. That's how I perceive what Elon is communicating, which is interesting, because it's sort of like maybe the goalpost may have been moved slightly, because he said, end of the year safer than a human, but maybe it's implied that that's what it correlates to, that they're going to do a wide release of full self-driving by the end of the year, and they wouldn't do that unless it was safer than a human, right? So maybe it's not really necessarily a thing. Emmett Peppers, shout out, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, Emmett's in the chat. It's so, like, my point is that's still beta, right? Like, that is still beta. Yeah. So it's not like, and it seems like it seems like some people are getting ahead of it and saying like, oh, level 5 this year, and that's really what the headlines are taking up, and like that almost makes sense, because that's what people in the news industry do, is they just have clickbait. So end of the year for beta, wide release, anyone that has FSD as a package can now subscribe to the beta. But that doesn't really put a timeline as to when beta will now kind of get removed of that label, and it'll actually just be FSD at that point. I think the better signal to look at is if Tesla starts to partner. And by the way, my guess is Miami for this. I think Miami makes sense. I think the mayor of Miami really adopts a lot of new age stuff, Bitcoin, for example. And it just, Miami's trying to be like the new age city. And I think nightlife in Miami really bodes well with robo-taxis, kind of one-on-one. So that's my guess. I'm going to throw it out there in the ether now. So if it comes true later, I can say I'm a savant. And so with Miami or something, like, Elon coming out and saying like, look, we're partnering up with the city of Miami. And I guess, by the way, stupid idiot me probably should have guessed Las Vegas first, but I'm just going to throw out Miami. And so, like,
I saw Richard in the comment with Vegas. I like that guess too.
And it makes sense, right? With Vegas and the whole underground tunnel that they got going on with boring. So, anyways, but my point is, I guess, with Robotaxi's FSD, like, this is such a step change in Tesla's unit economics for everything, should this get solved. The beta, even the release of beta, I think Matt was saying from Good Soil, that unlocks a huge pool of deferred revenue for Tesla
That's right.
that they can now start to accumulate. So, and what's interesting as well, the FST subscription price has not increased, though FST price has increased. It's almost
Yeah.
20K Canadian. Actually, it's over 20K with tax, Canadian for the FST package now, which is nuts. Like it's gone up so much, like 50%, I think, almost in the last
So you
year.
want to hear my theory on that? I
Yeah,
think the reason why they're upping the price is because they're trying to incentivize more folks going subscription. I think they're really starting
yeah,
to they want to start setting up their recurring revenue stream
hmm
from their software, and this is going to be and it also signals to them what the cap is that people are willing to spend on this technology, and I think it helps them craft Robotaxi in the future, because now you're getting to the point where, especially given this .69 videos that we're seeing, full self-driving used to be this thing where were more stressed with it on than off,
mm,
whereas navigating on autopilot for a long time now you've been less stressed with it on than off. That's a good sort of like abstract measure to gauge if your technology is ready.
mm,
And so if you're more comfortable with it, then it tells you, okay, so people are going to start actually using it for as a useful measure.
yeah,
And then creating the separation between your leasing and your full price will allow Tesla to really understand what is the market willing to absorb when it comes
hmm
to using this on a regular basis, and
mm,
then they can set up the full price as a commercial price where people can, pull forward the profits a little bit earlier, or you can do the leasing program and allow people to just cash flow from the start. Right. So
mm,
it's interesting. You have these signals as a business owner that you can get from creating the separation between the two prices. Now, I don't know if Elon and the Tesla team are really approaching it that way, but you do get signals. It gives you a
yep,
signal. If we start seeing charts from Tesla that the adoption of the leasing program is going up, then it's going to be interesting to see. I think Tesla's going to use that as a signal that says full self-driving is ready, and we've sort of understood what the correct pricing of the thing is. Sorry, you pulled something up, but
I
didn't
did.
mean to
Yeah,
interrupt that.
I think the signals is important, by the way, because Tesla often does give signals out for those who are watching close enough, I guess. Brian's asking about, did subscription prices go up? They have not, right? And I guess small little plug here. I actually asked Elon that. He replied, and he said the monthly subscription price will rise when FST goes to wide release.
Mm.
Now, like again, this is a little bit confusing because it's like, is it FSD beta goes to wider release, or is it just FSD goes to, aka FSD comes out? So I don't know. Take that for what you want. I think he means probably when
I think it's
FSD
end of the
beta,
year.
end of the year, is
Yeah,
kind of the timeline for that. So,
I
and
think
you're
so.
right. Like, why not for accounting purposes, for a revenue recognition, monthly subscription incentivizing is so much better. That's why SaaS companies have such high multiples. Even like obviously during the pandemic, SaaS multiples went up through the roof. But even now, like SaaS multiples are like 10 times. So like it's SaaS multiples in the private markets get a really high multiples, SaaS companies that is. And so I think SaaS is going to help Tesla with that next level revenue recognition. We talk about Amazon, right? Like Amazon's net profit, a huge portion of it is AWS and the money that they
AWS.
make
Yeah,
there, right? And like
yeah,
in terms of revenue, it's like very little. So like I think almost I want to say the majority of their net income can be attributable to AWS at times. So
yeah.
um,
I mean, I can tell you, I have a Cybertruck on order, and I'm probably not going to buy FSD full with it. I'm probably going to do the leasing because I'm thinking about that car as a use case for me. If I'm getting the Cybertruck, is because honestly, for me, it's super obnoxious, and I kind of like being obnoxious sometimes. So, I kind of want to drive it around and try to cops don't listen to this, but I want to drag race everybody at a stoplight and show them that my thing is faster than their Lamborghini, right? So like you don't need full self-driving for that. But if I
uh-huh.
ever want to take a road trip with it, I can just, sign up for the month, pay the
So
two or
yeah,
300 bucks a month, done. Instead of
yeah,
taking 15, 20 grand potentially of
yeah.
cash and buying a feature that I'm probably not going to use a lot on that car, and instead I
Mhm.
buy Tesla stock with that. So I think those economics start to come up.
And my dad and I had the same argument over this weekend. He's like, "Yeah, I need to buy FSD on the car before the price goes up." And I was like, "Why? Like you drive 0 kilometers on the highway, like ever. You're just driving the city. The longest your trip is to your office, and it's like 4 kilometers. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you're not going to be a beta tester. You don't have enough time for that. Why do you want to buy
Right.
FSD? And his argument was like, look, if I buy FSD, I'll gain on the appreciation of the FSD package when it goes up in price in like 3 days. I'm like,
It's
fine,
true.
but like, it's not like you're looking to flip your car. And so like, I kind of had this argument. I was like, just wait for the subscription when it comes here. By the way, if Elon, you're listening, get the subscription out here in Canada so people like my dad can actually try it. Like, he's dying to try FSD. He can't even tell you what's on it, but he wants it. Like,
Right.
he has no idea what features are on it, but he hears it. It's like an additional thing. Like, he just loves it. He loves the idea of like getting it. So yeah, subscription makes sense from a money printer perspective and everything like that, but also makes sense for road trip guys like us. Like, like, I don't have FSD on our Model 3. If we're on a road trip, we're doing like a summer trip or something. Yeah, I'll buy it for a couple months, use it. FSD beta might be cool for the channel to do. I'm not sure, like that sort of stuff for those kind of video ideas. But I think overall,
Right.
if unless you're planning to do robotaxis as a business, right now it's more of a party trick or if you're looking to beta test it, that is, right?
Yeah, it's definitely getting to a point now where I think once I get .69, I'll confirm it. But it does seem like it's actually becoming a thing that's not just something that we're proving out to make sure that it works, that it's legitimately bringing value to the road because it's taking less stress out of your hands and it's taking over. So
Yeah.
if it's reached that point, then the equation changes dramatically.
Yeah.
Dramatically.
By the way, thank you, Tesla Light, for the super chat. So excited about second half and beyond. Tesla, let's go smash that Juju. Tesla like button, Juju gang. By the way, you know what's funny? Farzad, I saw
And the
YouTube.
subscription.
Oh,
And
right.
this,
Yes.
guys, if you don't hit subscribe and get this man to 20,000, I will go to the White House and ask him to make blueberries law as juju. I'm telling you.
I think you're almost incentivizing them not to hit the subscribe when you say that, because everyone wants to see you go to the White House.
I will just go to the White House, period. Just get it to 20,000. I'll go say hi to Biden and I'll tell him to be nice to Tesla. How about that?
There we go. I saw a YouTube video, by the way. It was like taking a driving. Someone put this in the comment. Taking a driver's test with my Tesla autopilot. Like, it was just like it was like some prankster like just taking a driver's test on FSD. I'd be very curious to see how that would perform on FSD.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was half debating like if I could. At some point, I would love to partner with like those like driving school people, like they rate you and stuff. I would love to partner with somebody and like just do videos about, okay, how would you rate this? Like, I don't think full self driving is there yet. It would create more noise than it would because it's still beta. But I think once it gets really close to release, I think it would make sense to get like somebody that teaches courses, and I'm gonna be like, hey, rate the car and be honest about it. I think that would be very useful information for people to adopt the technology at some point. Because right now it's obvious it's still beta, but once we get to adoption point, I think that'll be a fun thing to do.
That's interesting. Yeah,
just for people to see.
Like, it could be like I hired 3 driver instructors to rate FSD or something. Like, that'd be a kind of cool model. Good segue here, and great question by Richard as well, asking about the new Giga rumors. Giga Canada, there have been a lot of rumors with Quebec, Ontario, mostly those places, to be honest. Like, no one really wants to come to BC for some reason. Might be the really expensive real estate here. But in general, what are your thoughts on the new Giga rumors, Giga Canada, or even beyond?
Yeah, I made a video about this probably like a month ago or so. I do think Giga Canada makes a ton of sense. They have a ton of raw materials close by. I think when I was looking at the mines that were available, there's a ton of, I think, nickel, if I remember correctly, available close by, especially around Ontario and what's east of Quebec? Newfoundland?
Newfoundland, but there's not a lot of people out there. Like, the population is very low.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. But there's a ton of like mines and stuff that they can get it from. And then the location is, say, close to Toronto, or Toronto, excuse me. You have Honda and Toyota.
What did you say? Wait, how did you say it? Say it again.
Toronto, not Toronto. Toronto.
Yeah, okay, that was right. You didn't have to correct yourself. That was good. Yeah.
But I said Toronto at first. I said Toronto, but I really should have said Toronto.
Okay. Well, I guess it depends. To be honest, like, Toronto people will have no respect for my opinion anyways, because I'm from Vancouver. So say what you want. Say Toronto for
I I have a very close family friend who lives in Toronto, and he always says Toronto, and I said Toronto. He's like, no, it's Toronto. I'm like, whatever.
Say
Anyway,
that.
let's move on.
I hate the nickname.
There's two factories near that city that shall not be named. I think it's Honda and Toyota. I forget who it is, but there's already two major manufacturers there.
Sure, yeah.
And so there is a base of manufacturing already around that area, and then from a geographical perspective, it gets you really much closer to huge city centers that currently have to get their cars delivered from the nearest one would be Austin. So New York, Boston, and Philly, Washington D.C., Chicago, all these major city centers with
Mhm,
very dense populations can start getting cars from this area. Something
mhm,
like a third of the United States population is in the Northeast, and they're very densely packed. And from a logistics perspective, it makes a ton of sense to do it there.
mm,
And just from me looking at a map, it looks like from a dollar per square foot or square meter basis, Canada in that region becomes much more economical if they can get the right incentives to do that, and it
mhm,
gets them really close to those areas. Plus, again, you benefit from proximity to raw materials. So,
mm,
but then you also have Indonesia, you also have Japan, you also have UK, South America, Africa. You have a lot of different locations that they're going to have to get into at some point anyway. But I do think Northeast United States makes a lot of sense, and so does Indonesia.
yeah.
But curious, what are
The
your thoughts?
I guess the only issue, and yeah, I think Windsor, for example, like kind of the Canadian Rust Belt is an interesting area, like right by Detroit, kind of by the border there. The problem is a lot of like haters in that area will tell you the reason why Tesla should not go in there is because of union play. There's a lot of union influence in those areas because it's kind of like where legacy
Mm,
auto was built up and a lot of old factories were, just like Detroit,
mm,
right? Like it's kind of the same thing. So that's one. I think the bigger thing is like we don't know if the EV tax credits apply if Tesla were to build cars in Canada and then ship them and then technically import them in to the US and then sell them to US consumers. Would under that bill they still be able to get $7,500 off for vehicles? Would they be able to get $35 off per gigawatt hour? Like there's or a kilowatt hour. There's a lot of questions I think as to there. I think if there's some sort of treaty to be made, like some EV treaty, that would make a lot of sense. And I think that would be very forward looking. Broadfather says that they actually would be able to. So I guess these are kind of open questions. I think the northeastern kind of tri-state area makes a lot of sense, like you say, like in if not Canada, like that kind of northeastern area, given the amount of demand up there, and you can drive the cars down the coast to Florida, even like it just like straight drive,
yep.
like very easy. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it makes sense. Austin, though, I guess, kind of buys you a lot of time for that still. Like it doesn't have to be right
It
now,
does.
but we know gigas take time to not only go through all the legal process and all the construction, but then also come to ramp and the batteries. So I guess there is some
It
time
would
here.
be a cost. Yeah, it would be a cost optimization play more than anything. And it's building. I mean, you're also building up a capacity, obviously, too, because if you do want to get to 20 million per year,
Hmm.
4 gigafactories ain't gonna do it. You need I mean, Elon has publicly said 10 to 12 total or something.
Hmm.
So you still need at a minimum 6 more.
Yeah.
But from a timing perspective, like Tesla's already going to make a gigantic amount of cash here in the coming quarters. It's not it's just a optimization of costs in the near term, and then in the long term becomes a capacity play. So
Hmm.
interesting to watch. Very interesting to watch.
I I will say Giga Hawaii has been thrown in the chat. I like that idea. I think it's great. For attracting
We're gonna have to import everything.
human capital. I think it's great personally because it'd just be a vacation and no one would actually work. So for that respect, I think it's great.
It's just a party. It's just a party tent. That's all it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
used to use tents to make the Model 3? They'll just make like, here's our new Gigafactory tent, and it's just parties all day, you know? Sign
It'll
me
be
up.
like
I'm there.
it'll be like if what's that festival? The not the fire festival, the one that's in
Oh,
the desert.
Burning Man?
It'll be like Giga Nevada's Burning Man, but in Hawaii. Same thing. By the way, let's
Or we'll do
play
like luau's and stuff.
Lu- I've never been to Hawaii. I need to go.
Me
I need to
neither.
go.
We're supposed to go for my birthday, actually. I'm excited.
When is that?
January 19th.
January. Okay. Nice. Hey, that'd be a
January
good time.
19th. You guys better remember, better be on my channel.
Well, remember,
Give me
I'll
happy
throw it on my
birthday count. I'm
calendar.
just kidding.
I'll throw it on my calendar. Maybe you'll be debating Gary Black on that day or something.
That'd be
275.
amazing.
sitting on Tesla. Let's play our Tesla closing price guessing game. 17 minutes left here until the closing bell. Throw your prices right Tesla closing price guess in the chat. Do your research now, Farzad. Remember, you have to be at or under the stock price to win the contest. Remember, virtual juju is a prize. I'll throw it to you through the camera. If you're over by even a penny, you can't win. I'll give you the respect of going first, my guest.
Oh, man. So I'm looking at the chart, and it looks primed to retest 275, like 98-ish, like 276.
Okay.
I think, but I
Okay.
don't know if it's going to happen. If I'm looking at just the last couple days, I don't know if we're going to get up there. I'm going to say, you know what? Screw it. 275.99.
Okay. So high a day pretty much today. Okay. I'm gonna go out there. I think today. Not for the sake of going out there. I'm just moving my Weeble right now just so I can take a look. I'm gonna go 280 to end the day. 280.
Wow. So big rally to close.
Yeah, I think we're flirting too much here with the high of day. I think the Nasdaq's on retreat. If you take a look at the Nasdaq here, it seems like it wants to almost go green. And I think and the VIX is okay again, but the VIX is not pretty overall. Oh, actually, it's rallying pretty bad here. But despite that, Tesla's still near high of day. So that's my best. I'm going to guess 280, which probably will never happen, but we'll see.
You never know.
Evan says gutsy by Yash, highest bid of all. Yeah, I you know what? The problem I have is I'm still not used to the split prices yet. Like $5 from here is like $15 pre-split. Like I still have to like kind of do all the math there of everything.
Yeah. It's 2%. It'll be a 2% rise roughly.
Yeah, I mean, crazier things have happened, to be honest, on this stream.
It's true.
Than a 2% rise. Let's talk Tesla second half of the year. We kind of flirted with this comment here earlier on the stream. Now, there's been some rumblings on Twitter with people saying like, look, Tesla is going to massively beat consensus. Let's just leave it at that for the end of the year. And guesses there and costs are going down.
I wonder who you're talking about.
But I actually didn't listen to that Twitter space. If that's, I think that's what we're talking about here. I actually didn't listen to it. I just caught the notes of it. But I'd love to get your thoughts. Undoubtedly, I think for me, there is, I think consensus is too low to end the year. But obviously, with this kind of force majeure, every other week environment we live in, it's kind of like you got to be careful with sort of, any sort of confidence in your short-term movements of consensus. But I'll have to get your thoughts for the second half this year, quarter 3 and 4.
Yeah. Shout out Yaman. I actually listened to his space after he was done, and I read his transcript. And in his transcript, he had y'all, like he spelled out y'all, but he said you all. And I'm like, you're going to write y'all and you're reading from a script and you're not going to say y'all, you're going to say you all? Come on. So I'm like, or automatically I like dismiss what he said. I'm joking, obviously. But I do think I think Tesla is primed to outperform consensus for sure. And the way I view it is because I think Tesla is firing on all cylinders. The one thing that I remember from working at the company for 4 years, and by the way, somebody asked earlier in the comments if I still work at Tesla. So actually, I left Tesla September of last year, and I started my YouTube channel like a couple months after I left. So there was been no overlap between those two things. But the one thing I remember is that anytime there was any organizational change that was tied to some sort of, like we had the layoffs earlier this year, to the salary workforce, which I think it was a way to resolve the bloat that occurred during COVID and sort of, you just sometimes overstaffed during those periods. So that in itself, from the time that I remember being at Tesla, you remove a lot of bottlenecks, and you really get people to start working together again quite a bit more closely than they used to be. So I think Tesla's primed to perform at a really, really high level, which usually turns into an environment where folks are driven to overperform and to outperform. So I think just purely from that perspective, they're going to do better than what all analysts think, most likely, are the consensus. And then going into Q4, you're primed to deliver. I mean, I saw a report from somebody today that said over 500,000 cars in the quarter. I don't think that's out of the question. to
Hmm.
be completely honest, and I have to sit down and sort of do the math a little bit. Mainly because Berlin and Austin have so much capacity to ramp into, and those are the two biggest wild cards. So if they are
Yeah.
able to execute at a very high level, your upper bound becomes much larger than it would typically would, because you just physically have so much space to grow into. And if you do it really, really well, then you can make a lot more cars.
Hmm.
So it's exciting, man. It's and the free cash flow question, it's going to be so hard to ignore that this company is a cash generating juggernaut, and it's unlike anything of its size that has existed, especially with the growth trajectories. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how that's going to change the tone and the tenor of the market when this comes to fruition. What do you think?
I agree. I do think I agree with Mimi here as well. Like electricity might be a macro factor in Berlin, all over Europe. And this is the thing is like it doesn't just affect Europe. Even if you think about all the parts that come and all the shipping that has to be done and parts moving around, like it's the trickle down effect. Like 101. This is why inflation is so rampant. So like that, and that, by the way, that goes even big, like that energy crisis that goes beyond stock market and inflation. Like this is, keeping people warm and keeping people safe. So
Yeah.
it's but putting that aside, let's say in a hypothetical situation where we can, by the way, my guest is not looking too hot right now, 274.59 sitting on Tesla. But putting that aside, even I think Berlin and Austin are what they are. I don't think we're expecting too much out of them to end the year. Like not anything like we're expecting next year, of course. But I think they secretly like there's that photo out of what is it out of Giga Austin this week where the 1,000 cars produced in the week again, and they did like a group shot. So they're kind of silently continuing on their ramp here. 500,000. It seems like. I just look at the earnings even like sorry I'm going in so many tangents, but I think
You're fine.
Tesla can Tesla with these cars that Tesla is producing, what's going to be interesting to see is how does the margin out of these new factories change the overall Tesla margin. So if the
Mm, mm,
4680s are and Sandy Monroe has been on record to say how much cheaper they are, if they're really going to affect the bottom line and all the giga castings, do we all of a sudden see an increase in margins, like not 50%, right? Because I think that's kind of
right.
absurd to think about. Which, by the way, correct me. Like if that happened, like I'd happily come on stream for 24 hours. But if we get into like the mid 30s by the end of the year for gross margin. Remember, Tesla's costs are going down, the prices are still going up. Next year, they can continue to go up with the EV tax credit. So, what I'm trying to say is, I think Tesla can do more with what they have already. And so, though Berlin and Austin are kind of wild cards in the situation, we've been pleasantly surprised before by the Tesla team. And we know Tesla in general likes the Tesla stock likes to move in shorter time frames. Like it'll do nothing, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing, and then it'll rocket up or rocket down, right? Like either way. So Tesla likes to move in these kind of uh let's say couple of week spans in between news events or delivery reports. First trading day of this year, right, was a prime example of that when we shot up to $1,200 on the delivery report. So um and by the way, did you see the Troy Tesla tweet? He's saying that September is going to be huge, and he's expecting like 100,000 cars out of Giga Shanghai.
Wow. No, I didn't see it. That's a lot. 100,000.
100,000 out of
Wow.
Shanghai. Yeah. Which is like like
That's a
1.2
lot.
obviously run rate, easy math. But it like, can you imagine if Tesla did 100,000 out of Shanghai in September? Like that would be unreal, right?
That'd be nuts. I think the way you've put the context of like the margin story is really insightful. But I think what this foretells is that, forget, like you talked about 2023, but like you layer in full self-driving adoption, you layer in recurring revenue from the fleet potentially,
Mhm.
the increasing economies of scale, inflation coming down. This paints a picture that says that as Tesla ramps up Austin, Berlin, and they start pulling these levers for recurring revenue,
Mhm.
every quarter from this point forward, for at least the next 4 quarters, is going to post a higher margin than previous.
Mhm.
And where is that story being told? where as the company is growing, its margins are getting better. When is the last time that's happened, especially within the context of a large scale manufacturer with a lot of competition? So how does that change the story? 4 months in a row, 4 quarters in a row, Q3 is going to be, I don't know, 32% margin, Q4, 34% margin, Q1, 36, Q2, 38. You could get to 40% margins by the end of next year potentially if you really execute really high on getting your factories to be as efficient as humanly possible, and then you layer in full self-driving and navigating autopilot and all these other sort of software pieces. That to me is the overarching story that we're going into next year, is that growing like crazy and making more money like crazy, and your margins are going higher, and you have all these levers you can pull in the future even more with the Robotaxi network, and who knows, with the bot, Tesla Energy ramping up. There's so much. There's so much. Not investment advice, but there's so much. And even to this day, quarter to quarter viewpoints, I think, are incredibly valuable to talk through. But I still think the bigger story is long term. Is every single quarter from this point forward should post a higher margin than the quarter previous.
Yeah, and to be fair, I kind of said this and thought this end of last year even. I was like, oh, by quarter 3, 4, we're going to be pumping. But of course, who could have seen Omicron? Who could have seen the invasion?
Exactly.
Like, there's so much. And by the time we listen to this, maybe by next year, there was 5 other things that
we'll
we could have, right? Like, and by the way, people are correcting me in the chat, and thank you for that. I pulled up the Troy's tweet here. It's deliveries, not production. Tesla team is expected to deliver more than 100K cars this year in September. This will be a new record, the highest month ever. Highest month last year was 71K in December, and the highest month this year is 78, and that's in June. So I mean, still like a market, a market improvement, right? In overall, like that.
They could still produce the same number too. They could produce the same number because you're thinking about Q4. They have to get the inventories up to deliver to customers. Then
yeah, exactly. And Tesla's always been about production. At the end of the day, it's not really like as we stand here, we sit here, the demand backlog is too big. So I mean, I guess I have a hard time right now decoupling macro and Tesla. There's so many awesome things to look forward to. The margin story, all the new product lines, potentially the 4680s at scale. Like, and then we talk about like macro is kind of the trump card when it comes to the stock price. At least it all of that could be for naught if macro goes in the dumps. And if we look at the inflation report coming out in a couple of weeks here, it seems like people are kind of looking at this report of like, last report was like, okay, it looks like we've actually kind of cooled inflation down a little bit, but like still like trepid a little bit like trying to, stepping on eggshells a little bit when they want to say inflation has peaked. I guess this report kind of has the ability to kind of really give a general direction of the inflation to the market. So are you looking forward to the CPI report at all, or are you considering
I am very much, because I think about this in a much more abstract way. But I mean, you think about, not abstract, but more like I go out to the real world and I start feeling sort of what prices are doing. I'm noticing a pretty drastic diminishing in pricing. Like I'm seeing a lot of deflation, especially in real estate. And I know like that's not part of the calculation for these things, but if real estate's coming down, everything else is coming down. I follow real estate pretty closely. On our own neighborhood, we had houses that were being listed for close to $1 million. Now they've been cut by at least 20%. That tells me that there is it's one place, but things usually follow real estate when it comes to pricing. So I go to the grocery store, my bill is lower usually for the stuff that I paid. The gas is cheaper at the pump, I think we're gonna see it come down quite a bit faster. And then the question becomes, is the Fed going to trap themselves in the same sort of place they were before? And Gary Black's been talking about this, where they were way too reactionary and way too slow to put in policy that would help the situation, not make it worse. So I'm curious to see what pans out late this year. We could be setting up for that again, but since the Fed gave a little bit softer language at the meeting, it could prompt for them to be a little bit more proactive about some measures this time. So I'm very closely seeing that report and seeing if the Fed comes up with different language. Yeah,
The real issue is like the Fed can't fix supply chains, and like continually that,
exactly.
right, that is what's getting hit at the end of the day. Like even with this energy crisis, it's at the end of the day, it's supply chains, and the Fed can increase interest rates, yes, to dampen inflation. But I think people are missing the story, and that's the supply chain has really caused a lot of
Yeah,
these problems. So
yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, this is why with the new EV bill, like the whole point is to get production domestic, because domestically you can like fate's in your hands at this point. And we've known this
Exactly.
for so many years. Like as soon as you, there's a huge benefit to having a trade deficit with China, right? But there's also there's a huge benefit, but there's also a huge downside, and that's that you don't control your destiny at times, and your kind of destiny is in kind of their hands. And so I think they have a strangle grip into the supply chain, and deservedly so. The workers, the factories in China, be it Tesla or anywhere else, like are world class at manufacturing. They have
Yeah,
been, but I think it's time to start talking about bringing production domestically, albeit at the
yeah.
cost, ironically, of inflation, because prices are going to go
But
up
even
again.
then, that's okay because like I feel like this sort of thing has changed. The tone of the discussion has changed. It's gone from America sort of outsourcing everything to now,
Hmm.
like Tesla's a perfect example. Just build the stuff here, and we're seeing a renaissance of that appearing again. So in 2 to 5 years, we're going to see the fruits of that labor come to fruition, and the
Yep.
markets are going to love it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
yeah. I guess it will take time. That's the point of this. Is like it's not going to be an overnight. Nothing is
right,
really an overnight fix when it comes to this sort of stuff, right? So,
right,
um,
exactly.
market just closed. By the way, I got to share my Webull here. I don't even know what it closed at. It's on my side here.
Where are
Okay,
we
my guess
at?
totally and utterly failed. 274.42 is what we closed at for the day. Let's see who won. I mean, Farzad, you were close, but you were still over. But better than I,
Yeah,
at
it was
least.
quite over.
274.
275.99. Yeah, I was way off.
What is it? 274.42 is our winner.
Hmm.
I think someone got it on hit the nail on the head here. Mr. Drezel. I'm gonna see if I can pull up
Oh,
his
it's at
chat here.
42 now.
What's it now?
274.42.
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Drezel guessed on the dot. Surprisingly enough, not sure how that happened. Hold on, let me just pull this up. I think I saw it. All right, 274.42 at 12:44 by Mr. Drizzle. There it is. Well done.
Damn.
I feel like there should be an actual prize when people get the hit the nail on the head like that or something. That's awesome.
You should FedEx him your lemon. Sign the lemon and FedEx it to him.
I don't think he
What do you
wants to. Like
think?
I've been like kind of like peeling at this today. It's like got my
I
hand
would
like
want to
all over.
sign the Yashu lemon. Come on.
Um, Debatable. How about a signed? You know what I should do? I should start implementing this. And Mr. Drizzle, feel free to shoot me a Twitter message. If you guess on the dot, I should buy you a bucket hat on like a Juju bucket hat or something. Feel free to Twitter DM me, Mr. Drizzle, if you
Signed.
want. If you
Make sure you
want it.
sign it. Yeah.
No, not signed in for like that. Like all that would do is depreciate the value of the bucket hat. So, someone's saying you
Ask
can
them.
sign
Maybe
a
if they
little
want it signed.
bit. Awesome. Hey,
Sign
thanks
it
for
a little
joining me,
bit.
Farzad. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in for
Yeah.
Power Ever. Everyone, 274.42 sit on Tesla. A lot of fun stuff happening. A lot of Twitter drama that I'm looking forward to your stream tomorrow for a debrief on. Much appreciated for coming on, my friend. And anything you want to say to the folks back home?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a blast talking with you, Yashu. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Juju Gang, for listening to the crap I had to say, I guess. And hit the subscribe button. Get this man to 20,000. He deserves it. Let's
We're going
go.
up.
I will go to the White House. I will go to the White House for I don't know why, but I'll go to
You
the
heard,
White House.
you heard it
Thank you,
here.
Yashu.
If you hit the subscribe, Farzad will go to the White House and demand that he
Yeah.
meets with Joe Biden. There we go.
At
So
some point in the future.
with an asterisk, little asterisk on there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yes, I'll still be streaming Friday for Power. This is just an addition on this. I've been saying next time you guys do this should be on Twitter Space at the same time. It's easy. I'll look into that. I haven't.
I like it.
Yeah, I know you do that, right? You kind of simultaneously.
I done it with Emmett and Matt before. It's actually pretty straightforward as long as you have a limited number of guests and you don't change up the guest number. So as long as it's static, you can very
Mhm.
much do it. And I can walk you through it. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, my friend. And hope to have
Thank
you on
you.
soon. Take care, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome.